I don't know.
Pretty good. Everything is under.
All right, good evening. It's 6:01, so we'll begin by calling our meeting to order, the Bennington Public Schools Board of Education on this February 16th. We will begin this evening with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. I see lots of students in the audience tonight. That's great. We're glad you're here. Our meetings are governed by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is located on the back wall. For those of you who wish, Jody, thank you for verifying publication and notification of our meeting this evening. And we will begin our meeting as we usually do with our public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the community to speak with the board. There are these gold sheets in the back of the room, so if you've arrived late and you'd like to speak with the board during our public forum section, please grab one of those and hand it over to Jody up here up front. Looks like we have two individuals that would wish to speak this evening. Just a couple ground rules. We like to limit the public forum time to 5 minutes or less. That allows us to make sure we have enough time for our business and for the board. And please limit personnel or student topics to after the meeting and discuss with our administrative team here tonight. So with that, we will begin with Zach and Diana Hettenbach. If you will come forward and just indicate to us your name and that you live in the district, and be happy to talk with you this evening. Just as a reminder, we generally don't respond. We're just here to listen and get feedback from folks, and if there are follow-up items, our administrative team will be happy to get back with you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Diana Hettenbach. My husband, Zach, and I have lived in the district in Pine Creek for the last 12 years. We have a 2nd, 5th, and 7th grader at Pine Creek Elementary and Bennington South, respectively. We first off want to state that we are staunch supporters of the district and the incredible things that it does. Having personally spent countless hours over the course of the last couple of years advocating for the passing of the most recent bond. We come before you tonight not to complain, but to urge you to consider taking some things into consideration and possibly making some changes. Our 5th and 7th graders are part of Bennington's High Ability Learner Program, or HAL. They've been offered some amazing opportunities through this program. However, as the district has grown, this program has been overlooked, and it's become obvious over the last year or more that it's taken somewhat of a spot on the back burner. We're fully aware of the budget cuts and constraints that Bennington and all districts across the state are being faced with at this time. However, as our 7th grader has been given more opportunities to interact with similar students from other districts, it's become quite obvious that Bennington is far behind in the opportunities and resources that are being offered to other districts for high-achieving students. For example, at a recent competition where students were tasked with developing and presenting a city of the future, many students from various districts, Waterloo, DC West, to name a few, spoke to how they were able to spend almost an hour daily of in-class time on these projects. Meanwhile, Bennington students got a mere 24 minutes per week to work on this project. These students spent countless hours over Christmas break, before and after school, etc., to ensure their project was thorough and complete. However, our son was shocked to see how much time other districts got in class. We would be remiss if we did not also point out that we personally have not met an educator that pours more into her students both inside and outside the classroom than Ms. Fitzgerald. The number of emails we've received at 7 p.m., the number of days she came in before or after school to assist these students is truly inspiring. We can't fathom the demands placed on her to manage classrooms of nearly 40 students for a mere 20 or 30 minutes each week to assure their additional education needs are met while managing multiple buildings each and every day. We know without a shadow of a doubt that she is doing everything and more within her power to ensure that these children are challenged, but one person with so many students can only do so much. We've seen firsthand the support that students with high support needs on the opposite end of the spectrum are receiving. According to a staff roster received this year, Pine Creek Elementary alone has 7 special education teachers and 5 paraprofessionals to support our students with high support needs that are not met in the standard classroom environment. Meanwhile, Ms. Fitz is asked to support the majority of the K-8 district high ability students who also have needs that are not being met within the standard classroom environment. According to the recently released annual report from the district, it stated that 15% of the students participate in the high ability learner program. However, only 3 of more than 300 teaching staff, less than 1%, are designated specifically for this population. While we fully realize that one is state mandated and the other is not, we would be remiss to not think long and hard about how that may be doing a disservice to some of our students.
As the Senior Director of IT and Business Analytics, managing the department of several different teams, IT infrastructure, software development, scientific data analysis, that support a company with multiple laboratories of over 300 people. I'm very aware of the workforce challenges that we have. If you look at what the Nebraska Chamber Foundation has released in 2025, Nebraska ranks 46 out of 50 states in STEM education completion. Many at the Chamber will also tell you that providing those challenges substantially increases the likelihood of students staying local, not moving out of state. We have some amazing opportunities in Bennington to help bridge that gap by providing our students more opportunities to experience STEM-related subjects. I can personally attest that this can happen as it has happened with Bennington graduates, one of whom was in-house and I hired on as an electromechanical technician. Now I get to work with robots. Pretty cool. We have some incredible young minds in our district that no doubt will go on to do amazing things, and people are talking and aware that these students' needs may be better met elsewhere. At a school that has dedicated staff for building and far more time spent challenging these students. We know, without a doubt, that's not something you all, nor Diana and I, want to see happen. We believe we can do better, and we hope you take the time as a board to consider how we can ensure we are not losing these students to districts that are willing to invest in their high ability learners. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch, what did you say, ages your kids were? Or what?
2nd, 5th, and 7th.
Okay, so middle school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Klaus, will you reach out to them? Thank you. All right, that brings us, does anybody else wish to speak? I only had one form, just making sure we didn't miss anybody. Okay. The next item before us is our consent agenda. This includes approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes from our Monday, January 12th regular meeting, as well as presentation of our February bills for approval and payment in our personnel report. Jeremy and I had bills this evening. I think you had one item you wanted to highlight for the
Just
board.
made our first payment to house, or one of many payments to Hausman,
On the high school.
on the high school, out of the special building fund.
And otherwise, pretty routine items as far as expenses. Just wanted to mention, we did have a bill from Staff Brothers for the fuel, as we all remember, we have the fuel tanks installed, so that did come through this month. All right, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Jeremy, you were louder, so you win. All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Kara,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison.
Yes. Motion passes. That brings us to our reports and presentations section of the board meeting. And first up is Dr. Robb from Bennington Elementary.
Hello, Danielle Robb, principal of Bennington Elementary.
A couple of things that we want to highlight for you this month. At our elementary buildings, we celebrated the 100th day of school on January 26th with some fun celebrations and some dress-up days. We also held parent-teacher conferences last week and had great attendance for that. We're going to try to spice it up for you a little bit in the elementary report and try to highlight something about each of our buildings. And so at Bennington Elementary, we have kicked off a program called Flash Dogs, which is dads of great students. And the program initiative is to get more dads volunteering in our school buildings. So we kicked it off with a pizza night. We had 119 dads and students show up, and we're now up to 25 dads who have signed up to volunteer in our schools. So we're excited. We start tomorrow with our first dad. So we're excited to start that and hopefully maybe spread it across all buildings eventually.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So any questions? Thank you. All right, next up is our middle school report with Mr. Applebeck.
Good evening, Luke Southbeck, Principal, Bennington South Middle School. A couple of highlights from the month of January. We were lucky enough to have Macalester College African Music Ensemble perform to our student body. It was a fun, interactive performance that students got to learn and hear about some of the music and songs that they learned from our sixth grade curriculum. Thank you to Mrs. Naybauer, our foundation and PTO for making that event possible. One of the traditions we started out South second semester is hosting our Frosty Fest event for students. Big thanks again to our PTO for the time and energy that they put into it, to helping to support our students. It's a fun way back to welcome the cold for second semester. Had to move it around due to the snow or the cold day, but we're lucky we were able to still coordinate that fun event for students. Any questions?
No?
Thank you. All right, next up is our high school report.
And there will not be a high school report,
Okay.
the ninth grade or eighth grade registration for ninth grade.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Parent teacher conferences again, they're full at the high school.
Yeah, my kids are out there in Grace babysitting.
All right, our student services report with Mr. Bombay.
Hi, Dan Bombeck, Student Services. Tonight I want to highlight our English language learners program. We're in the alpha season, so they're going to be doing alpha testing to see how students are progressing with their English language learning skills. Right now we have 63 active students in the program, so that'll be 252 testing sessions that our teachers will be getting scheduled and taking care of over the next couple weeks. Additionally, when we look at this, 91 students were classified as redesignated or are classified as redesignated, meaning they're in the process of just being monitored right now. So on top of 63 active students, our teachers are monitoring 91 students to make sure that they're still progressing and growing, and just keep tabs on them and make sure they're successful and move forward. And then again, as we looked at the district, 34 languages are spoken in our district with Nepali, Spanish, Pashto, French, and in English with this, Quechua as the top 5 outside English. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Feeney, curriculum instruction assessment report.
Good evening, Jimmy Feeney, Director of Secondary Education. I get a fun job tonight. So one of the fun things about math growth is when you start to see some of the growth reports. And so one thing about the math growth report is it's a norm reference test, meaning that the percentiles are reported, so it's compared to the norms of across the nation. So compared to other students, one thing math does uniquely is it will give us an idea if our students are growing at a rate that's similar to those other students. So they'll take a kid in 7th grade at a certain achievement level, and they'll say they should grow this much by mid-year or by end of year. And so one thing we get to monitor and look at is, are we hitting those marks? And we get to see those by student, by school, by student groups, but we also get to see it by grade level. As you look at this report down below, you'll see that there's an orange diamond. The orange diamond is what they projected our growth to be as a whole. When you look at the purple rectangles, those show you what our actual growth is. What's pretty common in these is to see it looks like a candlestick. So you want the flame close to the candle, meaning that you're pretty close to meeting your growth goals or your growth projections. Pretty phenomenal report coming out of the winter testing to show that each grade level exceeded their growth projections is really remarkable. So as we were looking at these and diving into some of the data and start looking at the growth that our students are showing, again, that's a really rewarding feeling and a huge compliment to not only our teachers and our students and our parents, but just to the overall like caliber of the education students are receiving, because we like to see that those numbers are, when it doesn't look like a candlestick anymore, we're outgrowing what the norms would say, which is really powerful when you consider not everybody starts at the same level. So those were really fun to do and to report. One of the other pieces as we scroll down is this time of year, each year, we give you an adoption update. We did shift our timeline and talking to the previous adoption groups. One of the pieces they wanted was a little more time to work in the school year on some of the curricular elements. So we did move that timeline up, and we've already had our vendor presentations. That would have happened a couple months later in the past. That did a couple things in the elementary. Dr. Tyndall was able to take her team, and they actually did 2 days of vendor presentations because they considered a fourth vendor. And in the secondary, we were able to call out to some districts and spend some time talking to teachers that are using the curriculums we're considering. So some nice little added pieces that we get to add in there, as well as move that schedule up so we can do more curricular alignment. And then for our professional learning, this is the time of year that we really talk a lot about finishing strong and kind of turn the corner on next year. So you'll start to see some of those pieces come through as you consider that.
Thank you. Some pretty impressive scores, and I don't think we highlight some of that enough, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Great job. All right, operations with Dr. Willenkamp.
Good evening. Matt Moon, campus assistant superintendent. Just a few things. Currently, we have 10 teaching jobs open in the district with 1 administrative position. So working on getting those filled here over the next month or so. We have 6 bus driver positions open, down from 7. Happy to say we hired somebody today, so that's always fun. 4 para positions and 4 food service positions that are currently open in the district. Headed to UNO tomorrow for a job fair, and to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln next week for a job fair as well. I had a chance to go with Mr. Boyes to Wayne State last week and had some luck there. Have some interviews that we scheduled from that job fair. So always have good luck when we go from that neck of the woods. Also in my office, in my department, we've been working on certification and certificate renewals with all of our staff members to make sure that they're all where they need to be when we start in August of next year. Intent to return and preliminary contracts will be sent out this week as well for staff to review. Mr. Edens and I have been working on summer maintenance projects. We will hopefully have those finalized and be able to bring that to the Building and Finance Committee here in the next a few weeks with the opportunity to bring that to the full board either in March or in April for our summer projects that we do every year. And then construction-wise, if you've been out to the new site, there are some walls or some steel that have gone up here. It's not just underground work, which we've been doing the last 6 or 8 months. So it's starting to look like a building, and I'll start to add pictures to my report on a monthly basis just to be able to show you where there's some progress and show the community where there's progress out of 180th and Military. Those are the things that I have for you guys tonight. Questions I can answer?
How are things looking with the climate with teachers and hiring, and what's your take? Is it going to be better than prior years, or?
If you looked a year ago today, to today, we have more openings today than we had a year ago. With that being said, I just did the math. We're at with the openings we have right now, we're at 2.3%. So although it maybe isn't as good as it was a year ago today, it might be circumstantial, not sure. So yeah, we have last week and this week, I think tomorrow I have 4 or 5 interviews set up. Wednesday we have 4 or 5. I mean, it's pretty full every day here moving forward. So we have some good applicants that we're working through and screening, working with the building principals really close to make sure that they have a lot of input on who's coming into their building and who they'd like to interview. And so working with those guys to get that scheduled, guys and gals. So
Do you think we're getting the curriculum proposals approved early enough for you to give you enough lead time? I know it feels like we keep
Yep.
doing that earlier and earlier,
Yep.
just to
No.
make sure, but.
It's, if we could do it enough technologies, and it's kind of a fine line, because if you go too early, people aren't looking. At that point in time, they're not sure. You may get first-year teachers that are starting to look because they're in college and they're starting to worry if they're mid-year grads or for the following year. But anybody generally that's already working in the district probably isn't starting to think in October or early November about, do I want to be someplace next year? And so I think we found a pretty good rhythm here over the last few years on when we get those approved, the triggers, and then we can move forward there. Again, we always have to kind of keep our budget in mind. Those numbers don't come out until February, March, and late January, March, and so how we kind of progressively release those positions, I think, work well for us and for our department. Other questions I can answer?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Claus, our superintendent report.
All right, thank you. We've got 3 things to talk about. First one is our bond sale. We had our first of 3 bond sales for the construction of the second high school. After it all played out, the first sales were $43,820,000. And so we believe that will fund the project through basically a 12-month period. And so we'll probably have the second sale around this exact same time next year. The all-in true interest cost for the sale was 4.25%. So that is about 10 basis points higher than we projected during the actual bond campaign. That's what we knew at the time. So it did go up a little bit. Luckily, when we were redoing the model until the first sale, it did come down almost 38 basis points from September. And so, there were some scary moments in September. By the time the sale came in January, we were pretty close to what we estimated almost 18, or a year ago, I should say. So that's all good. It is all previously communicated goals were met. So what we told the public we would do throughout the course of the bond campaign, we've met all those goals. 21-year repayment plan. Principal payments begin in the 5th year as well. And our first bond payments will be due, or we'll start paying out in June and December. So everything went as we expected a couple months ago. Second thing I had, any questions on the bond sale?
No, just appreciate all your work. I know a lot of effort with you guys and DA Davidson to come up with the best scenario. And I really like how we split it up into multiple years where we have more information and trying to do the best we can.
I really should give DA Davidson a shout out. I think we ended up with like 60 models. He told me, and I just felt awful at the end. Like we just had to keep running them. And part of that was, the fail of the bonds, and then it's been a weird environment interest rate wise. And so I think we went from having 3 sales down to 2 sales, back to 3 sales, and they were constantly looking at what they knew at that moment and what was going to be best for the district, and we feel good with where we landed. All right, second thing I had up there was the AQuest system. So a reminder, the AQuest system is the accountability system that the state uses, where it grades schools at the end. You're either excellent, great, good, or need support. Bennington has constantly been in the excellent rating, but they're going to switch up the classifications and what goes into the model to produce where your classification is a little bit this year. They're going to put a greater emphasis on post-secondary readiness and then year-over-year growth. And so right now, it has items in there like that can change your classification based on how you do, but they really want to emphasize the growth that way, not just test scores. Not every school is going to have amazing test scores, but they could be growing significantly year over year and doing an amazing job, kind of like our math growth showed earlier. And so there's going to be more emphasis on growth and then post-secondary readiness. And so that'll be done through indicating pathways of advanced coursework, career and technical education, work-based learning experiences, and things of that nature. And so there'll be more opportunities to bump up into better categories. Obviously, we generally are in the top categories, so we can't bump up, but nonetheless, those are things that it's kind of great they came out with because they mirror what we just approved with our strategic plan. We've got a portion in there about improving our post-secondary readiness and our CTE offerings. And so it's great that the AQuest accountability is going to mirror what we just approved last month. In addition to that, obviously, we're always focused on growth. We put that within our strategic plan under the academic, MTSS academic, and then the MTSS behavior as well. And so it's great that they're coming out, and it's something that we already approved and we're already working towards, and it's not a shift or a change for us. We're all in line with it. Questions on that?
When do they come out?
AQuest, so this year, they wait till the school year is over, and then the classifications for last year are typically released in November. Is that correct? Yes, in
And will
November.
they still be the same? Excellent.
Yep, excellent, great, good, and needs support. Yep. So they need to get all the data in from the current year, analyze it, run it through their model, and then they get the ranking. Yep. I think maybe earlier November, maybe October, September.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're good. I'm just doing the best, it's all about growth. I'll let you know what it is. Last thing I had on there is advanced placement. There was an article in the World Herald about a couple weeks ago, just talking about how more students statewide are taking AP courses, and then also provided some context of what some districts that have reported to them. They didn't ask us, we weren't in the article, but I thought I'd provide context of what Dr. Lamby provided to you guys right at the beginning of the year in August or September. He let you know that the statewide average mean score on AP exams was 3.14, where our students were 3.69. And so we knew that we did better than the state, we did well, but there wasn't a whole lot of additional context beyond that. A reminder, a 3, 4, or 5 on an AP course will give you the college credit. Some schools accept a 3, some schools accept a 4, some schools it takes a 5, generally like Ivy League or type institutions. With that, in the article, they did provide that there was a 70% passage rate in the state of Nebraska, and then they had that Bellevue had 78%, Millard had 86%, really great percentages. Our passage rate last year was 89. And so I just thought it was interesting because we've had that discussion on AP. It just provided more context that we didn't have in that moment, show the great things our kids are doing. Obviously, our AP teachers and everybody at the high school and parents that have problems are chipping in on AP courses because those are hard. I mean, those are about as tough as it gets. So I just thought that was a little bit that highlighted just the amazing things happening at the high school as well.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I know we had several committee meetings this month. Building and Finance Committee met at least once, and we discussed a variety of topics, including some items on the agenda this evening. So I think, per usual, we'll defer to that unless you had something specific you wanted to highlight.
No, nothing for me.
Was there anything from the curriculum committee meeting?
Same
minutes?
thing, reviewed proposals, talked about the budget, that's the budget movement, which you guys are
Yeah.
sure well aware of, so, yeah, that's what it is.
All right, we will move then to our spotlight report this evening. And I believe we have a spotlight report on department leads, which is a topic report, so.
Yeah, so as they're transitioning up, just kind of a reminder, this was a proposal last year to have department lead meetings within the high school that was approved. And so whenever we have things like that, we like to bring them back and follow up and let you know how they're going.
Welcome, we're glad you guys are here. Thank you for sharing with us all the great things you're doing.
I'm Leslie Fortin, I'm a high school special ed teacher and one of the department chairs.
Michael Score, science teacher, science department chair.
If that doesn't work, Stacy can probably drive it in from the
So this came from our curriculum proposal, and the 4 core areas got a department chair, which would be math, which is Connie Berger, science, which is maybe special ed, 5 areas, math, which is, you mentioned Connie Berger's. English is Bethany Stacy, and social studies is Jason Hart. So those are the 5 people that were chosen through an interview process to become department chairs. And that's what we have.
I think that we saw that there were more than 5.
Yeah, more than 5 people had to be in the department, such as science has 9 this year. We're going to go to 10 with so we'll have 10 science teachers next year. And basically what we've done, I'm not going to read much of the report to you, is it's allowed us to focus in as a science department, such as our PLC goals. We've been taking apart our physical science semester exam and see how it aligns to the Nebraska state standards, the questions that we ask on it. And if the questions don't align to the state standards, why are we testing them? Are they important? An example is the scientific notation. Nowhere in the state standards of Nebraska do you have to learn about scientific notation, but it's pervasive in science. That's how we do math with large numbers in science. So you gotta learn that. So that's something we look at and seeing do we can eliminate change questions, and that's something we focus in on. And it's me, I drive, I'm totally in charge, but I bring that focus instead of just being a wide open department as we were in previous school years.
Those are our chairs, and then different responsibilities that we have. So our team this year focused a lot on communication, IEP accommodations, and then making sure we had common assessments throughout the different departments. So we focused a lot at the beginning of the year on IEP coordination and how we would get that information out to all of the staff members. So department chairs gathered, met with staff, went over all of the information that was pertinent, where to find it, items like that, so that everyone was able to be on the same page. Common assessments was another big area for us this year. So we would get together and then talk about the different ways that we gave assessments, where the areas that needed to be improved. And we've gone back to that several times over this year to make sure that things are cohesive and the kids are getting what they need, even though they have different teachers. So
One of the greatest things that come out of that is we see that we learn what math is doing, we learn what English is doing with their assessments, and some of those ideas can translate to the other departments. So we can gather new information and learn from each other. One of the biggest things that is coming up is the budgeting process. We're going to be more of the focal point. Everything's going to come, as far as I know, come to us, and then we're going to go to Greg and basically have it all ready for him, so he doesn't have to sort through 50 different proposals and budget requests. We're going to be, this is what we need, what we're going to have. So that's one of the big things that is coming up for us, is the budgeting process. And also the ending budgeting process, because we know by the information we're given by the industry, Greg, we need to spend the money that the budget this year, and science department will do due diligence and spend the money that the district has given to us. But it's more of what can we get, the mundane stuff, you don't know how many rulers you need in a science class until you actually start teaching the classes. So, it's more of this, what mundane stuff do we need, so we have the basis, and then we can start looking at the bigger ticket items and build that. One of the things that we have to do at the high school, we realized through this process, is we got to get our microscopes on a cleaning rotation. And so we have to build that into the budget, and this is something else that we're working through in the BPS process.
we did have meetings in the summer where we started out looking at what goals we were setting and where that was going to lead us. Then we went in the fall, we met with the IEP information. We did look at co-teaching, how that was structured. Went over a lot of weighted grades this year with our departments in small groups, whole groups, things like that. Got that going. We were able to do some curriculum work, added one of our special ed teachers to the curriculum in the math department for curriculum selection. So that was a big bonus that we felt was important to have someone from special ed on that team. So.
Yeah, in the fall, one of the biggest things in the science was understanding our grading system. Because I'm an old chemistry teacher, there's something we do in chemistry that has weighted averages. And so I was expecting that's how the grades were going to be calculated. It was not. So I had to learn how it was calculated. I worked with Mr. Uckman on that to understand the process, and I was able to take it to my teachers and explain to them, this is how grades are being calculated now. And we were able to do that.
Other things, as we roll into the spring, we talked about the math adoption, hiring of staff. We were able to sit in on the interview for the assistant principal, some of us were this year. And so that was really beneficial. Just have the different knowledge of what we needed in someone. The other thing was, what else? Oh, we also developed like a test log for the high school this year. So all of the teachers have access to the test log, so everyone knows what's coming up in the same week, so things are developed, or so everything's not given like on Friday. So that was our big tasks. ACT prep, anything else? Any questions for us?
That's kind of highlights what we did.
Are there some things that came out of this that you were surprised, that have really been beneficial?
To me, it's been in the meetings, finding out what English is doing and what math is doing.
Right. So you're able to see.
And just seeing that's happening there, and it's also, sometimes I'm glad makes you beneficial what certain things you're doing in an department, and then you think about what other departments are doing and can that translate? And that's been very good to see what's actually going on inside, because we don't interact with the English or the math department so much, but it gives us insight into all of those different departments. That's probably the biggest thing. Yeah, it's a greater understanding of what's going on in high school.
The collaboration and camaraderie too has been, I feel like we connect more. People come to us and then we're able to collaborate on ideas, so very beneficial.
I think if Greg was here, he would tell you that's been huge too. You have 10 English teachers and there might be 10 people going to him asking a question. And now they're going to go to the department chair, they're going to get them organized. There might be one person who asks the question, or the department chair can answer it and it doesn't end up in his lap. And so I think that systematically and within the building, that's probably been really beneficial, and it will continue to be beneficial as we split into 2 buildings. And now you want to make sure both buildings are teaching the same thing in the same way with common vocabulary. So.
And like too, you got the leadership opportunity for both, right? Because always value that in our training in that area, so. That was good. I think it's very nice. Anything else?
Anything else?
No.
We're all good. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, I think that brings us to our lobbyist report. Is Judy here? She's here.
Well, really is transitioning. It is November, that a question comes out.
Scratch your gut, that's what that says, right? Welcome, Julia. Glad you're back. We're here for another session, so lots happening.
And I'll make this short and sweet, just like part of the session this year. We are on day 27. We will be tomorrow, believe it or not, with only a 60-day session. We are scheduled to end in April 17th. There's talk we may be done the week before that, which would be fantastic. Approximately 550 bills were introduced in this short session. So if you recall, a couple of years ago, they put a limit on the number of bills that senators could introduce. It doesn't seem to be slowing down the great ideas that the senators are having, because there were still quite a few bills introduced. So the pace after the first 3 or 4 days or so settled into, we do legislative debate in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, we have to hear all of those 550 bills that need a public hearing. So the committees have been extremely busy in the afternoons and the evenings, trying to schedule a lot of those bills to get done. Like, for example, this week, because of the recess day today, education will only meet 1 day, so they have 6 or 7 bills scheduled. So you can see the pace is really moving along. The big news of this session is going to be the budget, and we have a shortfall, of course, and the governor has his idea on how to fix that shortfall, and then the Appropriations Committee has released their preliminary budget as well. All of that will coalesce into what we will see as a budget debate, which is somewhat unusual for a short session, because the budget is typically done in a long session, and then we just sort of, sync up on what the budget items are in the short session. But because we have such a significant shortfall this year, there will be a budget debate. That bill is due, so the Appropriations Committee budget is due out on the floor by March 9th, day 40. And I really see the focus after that being on the budget, and they'll schedule a number of days for that debate and potential cuts to different departments. The other date that will show us sort of what's in store for the rest of the session is the priority bill deadline, which is February 19th and 20th. The 19th, we'll know what senators have picked for their priorities, what committees have picked for their 2 priorities, And then on the 20th, the speaker will announce his 25 priorities. So that will really, again, set the tone for the remainder of the session. Some senators and committees have already picked their priority, education has not. So we're sort of anticipating that here in the next week or so. Specific bills, there was one highlighted on the report, 653, that when I did the report was on general file. It is now, we ended that on Thursday, that being on select file with a couple of amendments pending to just change that up a little bit with regard to the suspension of pre-K through second grade students and what the school, just reaffirming that the school has to provide written notice and a conference and give the student a chance to tell the circumstances in their words what happened to lead to a potential suspension. Any other bills you want me to talk about, Dr. Blanc?
No, I think that's the one that appears at this moment, like it's on the fast track to pass. One thing I do want to note within there is that the option students, so this would change option laws. Currently, only option students are in our district. They attended our schools for 2 consecutive years. They moved out. By law, we have to accept them. Those are the only opt-ins that we have. If this were to pass, there would be a second category as well. Siblings of option students have to be accepted. And so let's say, and this does happen to us, you have a family of 3, one of your kids has been here 2 years, they move, they want to stay in the district. We only accept the one student, and when the 3-year-old brother or sister gets up, to school age, that they're not accepted. This would change that law to siblings as well have to be accepted. So when you're making an option decision for one, you would really make it for the whole family. And that would be regardless of needs as well, so.
And there is a funding, an education funding bill that we were watching. It still sits in committee, as do most of the education bills right now are just kind of sitting in committee waiting for either to be joined in a package or voted out on their own. And that's it. Any questions for me? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our unfinished business section of our meeting this evening, and we are going to discuss, consider, and take action on our 27-28 school calendar, which I will note does have President's Day off.
If you didn't know what's
First
going
week back,
to.
we'll be here about that. I think we reviewed this at our prior meeting, so hopefully folks have had an opportunity to think about it and ask the necessary questions. Do we have any other items we want to talk about?
No, the only thing I'd like to note on there is on the bottom in red is the snow day saying that once the 3rd snow day, we'll start adding days. We still have the remote education option that we have yet to exercise this year. We kind of talked about at the beginning of the year, we'll pilot that, we'll see how it goes, we'll either keep it going or stop depending on what we see. So that could change. The days are all going to be the same, but what those snow day look like, we just like a little bit of time before we finalize that for 27-28.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Discussion? Okay. I move to approve the 27-28 school calendar as presented.
Second.
Joe? It was tied, okay. Joe, second by Joe. And Jody, please call the roll.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, the next item is our new business of the meeting this evening, which is to consider some curriculum and personnel proposals. So I'll turn it over to you to discuss. I know we mentioned these in committee, but.
Yeah, so curriculum personnel proposal process, we had 50 proposals this year, and so this would be any changes of curriculum or adds to staff. We have 50 things that we are considering continuing to look through. You guys have previously approved 5 of the 50 proposals. The curriculum committee has unanimously supported bringing these ones to you today. The first one was for 3 special education teachers. We are continually behind when it comes to the number of special education teachers. Obviously, when an IEP takes place, whatever comes out of that IEP that student needs, we're legally obligated to do as a school district. So assessing where we are currently and then also what that's going to look like with growth in the future. We're recommending up to 3 special education teachers for next year. part of the reason, in addition, this, moves up the scale for us is 80% of all special education costs are reimbursed from the state of Nebraska. So for every dollar we spend, the district would cost 20%, we'll get reimbursed 80% of that. And so while the dollar is high, in our budget situation, at the end, the result is lower. And so that is the first one. The second one is for a mechanic. So we have, for a long, long time, we've had a maintenance person within one of our elementary buildings, also do the maintenance on our bus fleet. We're up over 20 buses, I believe, at this point. Obviously, this relationship probably began, when we had 2 or 3 or 4 buses, not necessarily 20. But we've continued to make it work over the years. That particular employee is going to retire here soon, and so our options were to try to find somebody that can fill that same role, or split those into what we probably need at this point as our fleets continue to grow. And so again, with this, though, there are offsetting costs because with our current environment, we were not able to have a half-time person do all of the maintenance on our buses. And so we typically would contract out with a mobile mechanic, who would then come in, they would perform whatever service we were not able to in-house, and obviously we were paying for that. And so if we were to add this mechanic, we would not need mobile mechanic near as often, which would have some offsetting costs. And so while the personnel proposal cost is $92,800, we believe after what we can offsetting costs from mobile mechanic, it would be about $25,000 to the district. So it is a relatively low cost add as well on there. So all in, if these were to be approved, the budgeted cost for them, including curriculum. Oh, I should have mentioned, sorry. On the mechanic, you'll see almost $20,000 in curriculum costs. That's not curriculum, that's actually the tools that come with it that we would need to purchase. We think that's probably pretty high, but we want to have an appropriate budgetary number, depending on who we hire and what tools that they have and what we need within the shop as well. Those would be one-time costs, so it's not like we would have that year over year, but we'd have to build out what we have as a district. So if these were to be approved, all in, it's $411,738 after the reimbursement from the state for special education, after the offsetting costs for mobile mechanic. The actual estimated cost for these positions is $104,725. So, that's something that the curriculum committee spent a lot of time on, is how can we get the most bang for the buck, and the reimbursement and the offsetting costs help make that true. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about those.
Any other adds from the curriculum committee? I know you guys have 42 proposals left, so I appreciate the work you're doing trying to find ways to make that stuff happen. It's a tight year, so, yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, I believe there's a motion.
I move to accept the recommendations by the curriculum committee for 2026-27 curriculum and personnel proposals number 43 and 50 as outlined in the January 12, 2026 curriculum committee report and pending 2026-27 budget approval.
Thank you, Kara. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion on the proposals? All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, our second item of new business this evening is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on the Omaha Public Works sanitary sewer project bids.
So this would be the sanitary sewer construction work that's associated with the second high school project. This work would be completed with the LR Group providing the construction administration, but it's under the supervision of the city of Omaha, and then obviously the consultation with us as well. And so this would be connecting sewer and water into what we would need within the new high school. And so it went out for bid on January 22nd, I believe. We had 6 vendors that put in for it. Our original budget for this was $657,000, and it came in at $654,859. So we were almost right on, but under, I'd like to note, under just under $3,000. This would be the first of we will have three infrastructure bids that will come in. We have this one to connect the water and the sewer. The one, probably next meeting, if not next in April, will be for the internal streets within, our plot of land. Then the third one, they're gonna bid together all the 180th and military all under one project. And so that's different. We probably plan on that being 4, but they're gonna put, or excuse me, 2, but they put it into 1. And so we'll have 3 big infrastructure projects. This was a big part of our budget when it came to the total, it was 124.5 million all in for the high school project, and this was almost 8 million for those 3 bids. So this was the smallest of them, but we do anticipate the next 2 to come to fairly quickly as well. I wanted to note on that one, so if the internal streets come to you guys in the next month or 2, they anticipate that work to be completed in summer of 26. That won't really have any impact on the roads or anything else. It's all internal at that point. Where there will be some impact on current infrastructure, military 180th will be during the summers of 28 and 27 and 28. And so, if I remember right, I believe they'll do the intersection in military in the summer of 27, part of 180th in the summer of 27 as well, and then they will finish out 180th in the summer of 28. So that'd be the summer right before it opens.
And why is the DLR is managing this and not Houseman? Is that just a nuance for the project?
The DLR helps design it all, and then they work with the city of Omaha to make sure that they're meeting all the city and county regulations. And so they do the drawings, they go back and forth with all the city planners to make sure that it meets all the codes. And then they manage all of this, but then it turns over to the actual construction is managed by the city of Omaha.
Okay.
So, if that makes sense.
It does, just it's a little unique. compared to
Yeah,
the
city of
other
Omaha
ones.
be on the construction side, DLR be on the consultation to get us to the right time. Yep.
Are there any questions? Anything? Okay. I move to award the bid contract to Thompson Construction for $654,858.85 for the Omaha Public Works off-site sanitary sewer project associated with the second high school project. Is there a second?
Second.
I think you're louder. Second by Jeremy. Any further discussion? Okay, Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, the next item of new business is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on the bid contract for the second high school project.
Okay, so November 20th, we had 59 bid scopes that went out. I think during that same December meeting, you guys approved 3 of them. In December, or January, we approved another 20. 36 of them are up for your approval tonight. That does leave 3 that were not approved. We did not have bids on 3 of the scopes. And so Hausman is working, trying to figure out how to get bids or how to provide that labor, but those aren't, they're not relevant to early work, and so it's not going to hold anything up. With that, the 39 bids, each of them are outlined up there. The total pre-construction estimate for this was $14.4 million, up and down, was $14.4 million. If all of the recommended contractors are approved, the total is $14,068,000. And so it is about $330,000 under budget for what we anticipate with these 39 different scopes. Some are high, some are low, but ultimately at the end, it ended up about $300,000 under budget. If these were to be approved, the other 3 bids that we still have to do, that's it. And now we're worried about, we've had some constant escalation as drawings have continued to be developed. We bid those out at 50 or 70% drawings as they get to 100. But right now we're feeling like we're in a pretty good spot. If these were approved tonight, we'd be at about $87.5 million on the construction side. We believe we had about $1.2 million of construction, scope change throughout the course of that. And so we're hoping that we're about $900,000 to $1 million of things that we start to look at the project, of things that we cut out that we really didn't want to cut out, but we want to make sure we made our budget first. And so those will all we'll start talking about those in the coming months as well. I can go through all 39 if you'd like.
No, I think at the bottom of the page here, Dr. Colossus, if you go to the second from the last sentence, it says that we're over.
I was hoping you would point that out, but thank you. Yes, it is under.
It's under,
Yeah,
right?
it is under. I made an error on that. Mine has a scratch on it saying under. So,
We get that.
yeah. So it is slightly under. I think when I was going through it, well, I know when I was going through it before it was finalized, at one point I thought we were over and I didn't make the change, so.
It's okay.
Yep.
What were the 3 items that have received bids?
Oh, shoot. Gosh, darn it, I cannot remember off the top of my head, Joe. They're $401,000. We have $401,000 in the budget allocated for it still,
Separate from what we're seeing?
separate from what you're saying. So we're ready for it, but I cannot remember what the scopes are, to be quite honest. I apologize for that.
No, that's, my main concern was what do we have allocated versus what we have on separate and what we have the couple ones.
Yep, yeah, we have that still allowance within the budget, ready to roll for once we can find our vendors.
Can you touch on the selection for painting and wall coverings and signage, since we didn't go with the low bids there?
Yes, so there was only a couple, I believe, that the low bid was not selected, and it was due to 2 things. Either a concern in their ability to get the work done because of maybe their staffing, and so, I'm gonna make up a scenario, I'm not saying this happened, but, a paint where you may only have 1 crew, and we've got a, 125,000 square foot building, so there's questions about whether that can meet, that 1 crew to be able to meet the deliverable that we'd anticipate. The second one is also along those lines where people submitted, but they wouldn't be able to meet the timeline, but their bid, they might get a little bit, but they wouldn't meet the timeline. So they might get kicked out for whomever could actually meet the timeline.
Okay.
Yep. And those are the recommendations of Hausman on each of those.
Okay.
Thank you. Good questions.
Yeah,
Anybody
good
else?
question, thanks.
All right, I move to award the bid contracts as presented for the second high school project. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes.
And Joe, I will get you those 3, what the 3 are.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on the 2026-27 negotiated agreement for kid staff.
Yeah, so negotiations took place throughout the last few months, ultimately culminating in tonight with a tentative agreement, if you guys would approve. Some of the highlights of it: base salary increase about $250. All staff would have horizontal and vertical movement honored. The big kicker this year is the health insurance rates, as the EHA rates went up 7.25%. Obviously, that eats into a big portion of the compensation. And then another item on there is extra duty compensation. Something is a year ago, within the negotiations, we talked about doing an array study. We found out that we're low within our array study, especially if we turn into a Class A school or a district that has 2 Class B schools. And so it was agreed to move the extra duty compensation to step 3 on the scale instead of step 1, which will get us more in line with the array. Some other items on there that are different, but they don't necessarily have a compensation change to them. Adding to the sick leave bank, we're currently at 50, and so this moved to 65 within our sick leave bank. In addition, when you could use sick leave, we added some language for dependents within the employee's care or anybody that legally executed power of attorney related to healthcare decisions. Those are situations that had come up that our language didn't necessarily account for, so make it a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility there for everybody. And then just language cleanup. Obviously, as we're going through the curriculum proposal process, we might approve something in May this is already done. So next year we always come back and clean those up. And so we clean those up as well. All in, this would be a 4.04 total package increase for our teaching staff.
Thank you.
You kind of touched on the extra duty compensation, and that was something last year we talked to BEA about, and, coming up with a tiered schedule to kind of get that extra duty comp up, and I would give props to them that they came to the building finance committee with a great proposal there. And oftentimes we say we want to select the things that benefit the most members of the BEA, but also opening the second high school, we felt it important to kind of be competitive as we're going to be looking for a lot more coaches in a couple of years.
Agreed, that was a priority, I think, for both parties this year.
And I think our discussions also, that it wasn't quite there, like this isn't quite it, but we wanted to slowly phase it in over time too. Like we feel like this is a really good start. And we might need to do some more in the future, but instead of doing it all in one big fight, makes it a little more manageable for the district.
Any other questions? Thanks, everybody, for your efforts and negotiations. I thought it was a very successful year and appreciate everybody coming to the table with ideas. So, all right, I move to approve the negotiated agreement for the 26-27 school year between the Bennington Board of Education and the Bennington Education Association.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes.
I need a break.
You guys are ready to roll. This is great. Next up for discussion is our new grading scales. So I will turn it over to Dr. Tyndall and Mr. Feeney to walk us through the analysis and thank you in advance for giving us the data for us.
Yeah, absolutely, our pleasure. Shannon Tyndall, Director of Elementary Education.
Jimmy Feeney again.
All right, tonight we're here to report on a grading scale study that we conducted the last year. This was prompted by local and statewide discussion on current grading scales. We were seeing a trend of moving from different grading scales from a 6-point to a 7-point to most schools trending to a 10-point grading scale. And so Mr. Feeney and I thought it was time we looked at ours. All right, throughout the last 12 months, we've looked at local and regional grading scales. We have investigated and contacted colleges about their acceptance and how they assign scholarships. We've done a data analysis within our system, talking about perception surveys, looking at the impact the change would make. And then we also talked about high academic standards. We wanted to keep the rigor and the high expectations and high output that we got that Mr. Feeney talked about earlier, high growth, high reward for our students. And tonight we're prepared to make a recommendation to the Board of Education what we think is best for our district. All right, this is our current grading scale. It is a 7-point grading scale. You can see it has plus and minuses. And another thing, you can see the weighted side of it, or the regular 4.0 GPA is all A. Whether you get an A plus, an A minus, we assign your GPA as a 4.0. If you're in a weighted class, which is one of the AP classes that Dr. Kloss highlighted tonight, you get a 5.0 on the scale. If you get an A, and then it goes down, B's assigned, whether it's a plus or minus, was a 4, 3, 2, and hopefully not a 0. All right, let's start with what we learned about other metro area high schools that we usually compare ourselves to. You can see up here on the left side is all the metro schools that use a 10-point grading scale, and the 2 left with a 7-point grading scale, which includes Bennington and Elkhorn. You can see an asterisk behind Gretna and Millard, and the reason they have an asterisk, this is their first year in transition to a 10-point grading scale. And so we worked with them, Mr. Feeney and I worked with them a lot to talk about the process they went through, what they looked at, how they made their decision, and gained a lot of knowledge from them going through the process already.
One of the big things we learned from the other groups was, we were able to dovetail onto some of the work they had done in talking about what the colleges and universities were doing with grade point, with the grade point average. A common misconception is that they actually look at what the scale is. And so when they look at a GPA, they are considering whether you come from a district of a 7-point scale or a 10-point scale. They're just looking at the GPA. You also saw a shift in post-secondary schools over the last several years. Although ACT still ranks very high in significance when you consider like scholarship money or what type of school they get into within the universities, GPA is now the driving force behind just general acceptance. So as you can see in the red box there, we have a 3.0 cumulative high school grade point average. That starts to become the baseline threshold for the university system for admittance into college. So we consider that as wanting to make sure we're leveling the playing field for our kids. If they're not going to consider that we're on a higher weighted scale or a higher scale than others. So one thing we considered was, then we really wanted to get into the educational side of it. So when we look at our data, are our students feeling like they're going to college prepared? You know, we know that we have high test scores and that Bennington does a good job of preparing students, you know, in secondary, but what does the post-secondary say? And so one of the pieces we looked at was rigor. So as you consider rigor, one of the pieces that is really important about it is rigor and grade point scale is the two very different conversations. Rigor is often, you know, our base level understanding of content. You start to get into cognitive engagement as you move up in rigor, which is, you know, can you add fluency and depth to the understanding that you have? And then you start to get into more of the scope or the application of the learning. So we wanted to look at, you know, do our students feel prepared? And when they go out into the workforce or into college, do they feel like they're going in with a high degree of knowledge and success? Are they getting the high levels of rigor that let them be successful and ready for college? So we looked at our postgraduate, our LifeTrack graduate survey, and as you can see, when asked if they feel like the challenging subject matter in the courses at Bennington, as well as the teachers held high standards for demanding quality work. So those are two that really stood out for us with, you know, yes, they feel like they get good subject matter, but also the vast majority of students felt that it was excellent or good work that was always required in class. So when we think about the caliber of the rigor in our buildings, we feel very confident that our teachers understand what the expectation is for that success in college and after high school.
Okay, and I mentioned perception surveys, and so Mr. Feeney and I started to dig into them, and so did people mention our grading scale? And you can see this is the parent survey that was given last spring in 2025. They do believe that we are adding undue stress, unfair disadvantage to our students going into college. And I'm not going to read all of that, but multiple comments when we dug through it mentioned the change in the grading scale. The staff climate survey was the next thing we looked at. And you can see they also thought that it creates unnecessary anxiety. It could hurt students in their GPAs, their opportunities to get scholarships. And you will see this trending through all our climate surveys. Here's the students, and they were very pointed about it, change the grading scale. All right, and the next thing is we really wanted to know what would be the impact on our current student performance. And so we took our students that graduated, 231 of them last spring, and we looked at that cohort. How did they perform on our 7-point grading scale, and what would be the impact if we were to change their grades to the 10-point grading scale? And so really where we saw the impact was that 3.5 GPA, and higher. It increased from 49.8% of our students having a 3.5 and above to 64.9. So that impacted 45 seniors. And if you think of that in the terms of attaining scholarships, that is impactful. The next thing I really want to point out is that 15% of our students, 34 seniors, moved from that 2.9 to a 3.0 or higher. That is automatic admittance into college for a lot of them without the ACT requirement. And so once again, how did that impact 34 of our seniors? The largest upward movement were from the 2.5 to 2.9 range in the percentage of students with a GPA 2.0 dropped from 5.6 to only 2 seniors not meeting the requirements or graduation. So large impacts. The next thing we did is we met with the high school staff because this would impact them the most. I met with the leadership team, with Dr. Lamberty, and they were on board. But we did still think we needed to survey the high school staff and get their opinion on it. As you can see, we put out a survey, only 17 responded. Out of those 17, 47% said they were in favor, undecided was 35, and 17, the lower amount, was not in favor. And a lot of it came from what the rigor would look like and understanding what rigor meant. And so Mr. Kaney and I worked with them. And once again, the Student Principals Advisory Committee, 25 students on there, they were all highly behind the 10-point grading scale.
So what this told us as we looked through, and considering a lot of those surveys, is that with the impact of the GPA, what the metro schools are doing, and the 10-point scale broadening some of those opportunities when we talk about scholarships and such, and admittance into college, there became a lot of evidence that this is a positive step for our district and positive step for our students and a way to support them. Again, not to come back to the comment that we keep hitting on, but maintaining that academic rigor will be a focus moving forward to make sure that we understand that we still want to continue to prepare our students, but we also want to make sure that we're leveling that playing field so that when a college is comparing a Bennington student to another student from the metro or even in Nebraska, that we're giving our kids an equal shot at some of those opportunities. So if you take a look at what we recommend as a 10-point grading scale, there's been a lot of discussion around if pluses and minuses are necessary and how that works from an educational standpoint of defining what success looks like. One conversation that really held weight with all the different groups that we spoke with was when a student sees that plus on their grade, some of those high achievers, that really means a lot too. So including the plus in there as a motivator to try and encourage that. So when a student sees their report card, really held some weight with our different stakeholder groups. And so we recommend that, not to change the weighting of the class. An A is still a 4.0 or a weighted class is a 5.0. But we want to add that plus on there just so that they get that little bit of encouragement that, you really did excel in the grades you got. So you can see the full 10-point scale there. So as we look through this transition to the scale, the next common question we get is, what does that look like logistically for our students? So this is something we would start in the fall of 2026. And then moving forward, the grades would reflect that 10-point grading scale. Grades prior to 2026 would still be calculated on the 7-point grading scale. The reason we would do this is we don't want to retroactively, and we'll come to this in the next slide actually, but in doing that, you set up, that's not something that is reflective of the policies in place at the time. And so we'll get into that in more detail, but we would be looking at just 2026 and forward. We want to be able to communicate this to all of our stakeholders so we can get out in front of people this spring and let them know this change is coming. We want to continue to hold high standards for the complexity of our course content. We want to have high levels of that cognitive engagement, and we would continue to weight our AP courses as the scale shows. So to provide a little more detail about why retroactive grading is not something that other districts have done, especially Northern and Gretna when they did that last year, was you want to reflect the policies of the time, and changing those grades does shift that. That historical accuracy and fairness, as we look back on our transcripts, we also want to be representative of what the practices were in that time. The complexity and risk, when you start changing some of those scales and you change some of those things, there becomes the risk that those permanent records get altered and those things start to change. And then you also talk about fairness. Applying that new scale would introduce some opportunities for those cohorts to, the start and end date for them is passed. And some of those pieces become very, very difficult to navigate. And so we want to focus on that future implementation. When you consider a student who may not take a multiple choice test where it's a percentage, but it's more like a rubric-based assessment, Those points are assigned based on the grading scale that you're currently using, and so to be able to go retroactively do that isn't a step that is recommended, nor we feel is accurately representing where we are in our journey up to this point. So one of the solutions we're looking at is on the transcript identifying that. So putting on the transcript that our grading scale for up through the class year 25-26 would be the 7-point scale, as well as on the transcript it would say for 26-27 moving forward. So that's a quick summary of all the work that's been done to talk about this and answer any questions we've faced. Is there anything else that you'd like us to touch on or have more questions of?
I just had a question I'm trying to recall. Earlier in the presentation, you indicated that the students with the 3.5 or higher was one of the biggest groups that would benefit from the new scale, right? So if one of the concerns, I'm just thinking out loud, one of the concerns that some of the educators have said was it might decrease motivation, but it seems like if 3.5 or higher are benefiting, we're benefiting a student group that already appears to be pretty well motivated. Am I thinking that through correctly?
So are you asking about the pluses and moving them up, or just the 3.5 being impact?
Yeah, the impact that it would impact that group of students the most.
Yeah.
If motivation was a concern, and those appear to be motivated students right now.
And so there's different levels of scholarships. I mean, just getting a 3.5 might obtain basic scholarships. If you hit a 3.8, a lot of times you're going up to regents or presidents and stuff. So there is motivation there. It's higher amounts of money and scholarship that you might still qualify.
I went through that all 3 years ago,
Yeah,
so
I bet you did.
understand.
And that wonderful young lady, I'm sure, had very high.
I have a question on retroactive. So you said that those two schools did not retroactive, but are there schools that did?
So when Mr. Feeney and I called Gretna, we talked to them a lot about why they didn't do it. And they looked for research and a lot of research on schools that maybe had retroactive. They could not find the study. They found one study that one school had done that, and they regretted it and discouraged other districts from doing it. So we know of none that have retroactive. They started the date from when we put this grading scale in
It just seems so
practice.
confusing, and I know that on a lot of those scholarships, you don't necessarily give your transcript. Instead, you fill that in, a teacher signs off on it, or and that's my only thing is, so you go all along at a 7-point scale, and then you go to a 10, and so some of those kids that may be like sophomores now, it just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, and we did talk about the fairness. Really, our concern is the integrity. If we move that in a teacher, Mr. Feeney mentioned grading on a rubric. And so that teacher maybe is no longer with us. And there was some professional judgment when you grade on a rubric. And so the integrity of our grading system, if we just say we move them up, there's no guarantee. And some of the research does say that teachers grade, they're the best knowledge of what an A paper or an A assignment would be. And a lot of times they adjust their grading. And so we could just do it, but we're taking away that professional judgment and making an assumption that that would have been an A assignment, an A paper. What Gretna did tell us that what they try to do, and we're in a transition of a new student information system, so we've been working with Mr. Upman to see how they do this. When you print a transcript, it does not have a percentage on it.
Right.
And so to figure out without those percentages on there that, okay, if you went to a college and had a conversation, because Gretna said some of their families have done that, gone and said, okay, this was a 7-point scale and asked for an appointment with the admittance or the scholarship committee at the university. And they said, okay, if this was on the 10-point scale, which other kids, this is what my kid would have received. So we've been working with Mr. Upman to try to figure out if somebody came to us and they really thought their child was on the cusp of a scholarship or getting into college, what could we do to figure out those percentages? Print it, and we'll work with them. Or a teacher signs, this was on a 7-point scale, the child obtained this in my class. And so we're not sure.
Yeah,
The
and I get
logistics
that, I just think
behind
there's
that,
gonna be a lot of people struggling with that.
Yeah.
That it's not retroactive if they're still in high school. I get it if they're out,
Yeah.
that's my concern.
Gretna did say even the families they have worked with, some of the colleges haven't accepted that, said, hey, this was a grading scale change, this was what. Some of them say,
And I think it's a lot easier with
Doesn't
colleges.
matter.
I think the tough part is scholarships.
Yeah.
Because you don't get a chance to explain yourself. You are competing with other kids that have that 10-point scale.
You know, we do also, those things are posted in our handbooks and our curriculum guides from year to year as well. And so it is a difficult piece to go back on and say, we're gonna change those things. And I think integrity is a good word for it. You know, if we were going the other direction, would we take away GPA points from a kid? You know, if we were reducing it?
Right,
And
and
so-
I just feel bad for the freshmen, this year, and then next year they're at a different, I think it's the hardest,
Yeah.
for those that are gonna be judged in 2 years, one by a 7 and one by a 10.
Yeah.
So I'm not arguing, I'm just
No,
saying
it's,
like
you're raising good
what
points.
what I feel like parents are going to be concerned with.
No, I agree, and I had a good conversation with you, Dr. Kendall, offline, because that was my concern as well, is it seems so easy from a parent perspective. You calculated it earlier in the presentation, you did the analysis showing what would have happened in that cohort, so why can't you just do it for this freshman class or this sophomore class? And so I think parents are gonna ask that, so I'm just interested in how we're gonna communicate that, because I think it's a hard concept for parents to understand. Data integrity, they're just gonna go, fix my kid's GPA, it was this, now you're saying it's this, just recalculate it. And so how do we explain that in a way that they can understand and try to find a compromise? And I appreciate you adding the transcript idea. I do think that's helpful. I'm just worried you're gonna get a flood of requests. Yeah. So,
and we might, and we'll have to work with our counselors and do, it is our job to make sure we give the best opportunities for kids, and it will be a transitional period, and we'll do our best to make sure the opportunities are there. That's Jimmy's secondary, so.
we will all under the bus.
Yeah. We will. We'll do everything we can through the transition to help and provide the information to support those kids.
And we are making sure that teachers are implementing the percentage, so we have the data. At least going forward, can we make sure that teachers are entering the percentages in, and not just saying this is an A or this is a B?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should have that detailed data.
And I know I put Mr. Ekman on the spot, and he can speak to this. He did ask them, and we did learn that they would have to put in the percentage, type it in the comments. We can print report cards with it.
No, so, sorry. I've gone back and worked with Anna over at ESU3. The percentages are there. The format that Synergy had originally given us for the data import did not have that column. They do have that column available, so we are working right now in Data Import 2 to bring all of those percentages across. So we should have them for archival purpose in the new system as well.
Perfect.
Sorry, that's.
No,
No time to get the back.
Good discussion. Does anybody else have feedback? I appreciate you guys' effort. I know this was a heavy lift, and I think it's gonna be best for students, so.
Yeah, I just want to say, appreciate the time. I know you brought to the curriculum committee several times to give us updates on how the study and research was going, so that was helpful too. And I know just from a community perspective, several of us have heard from parents asking about, can we consider this for probably the last year? So the time and energy that you guys have put into responding to what the communities want, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I believe there's a proposed motion.
I move to approve the 10-point grading scale for Bennington Public Schools beginning with the 2026-2027 school year.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any further discussion or comments? All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, the next item is for us to go into executive session to discuss support staff and administrative compensation. So I do want to mention that we do anticipate action items after this executive session for those that would like to stay. And then a few housekeeping items before we formally go into session. Our next regular board meeting is March 9th at 6 o'clock here in the district office. And I think that is it as far as date reminders. So is there a motion to send us into executive session?
I move that we enter closed session for the purpose of holding a strategy session regarding collective bargaining as an executive session is clearly necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll, please.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion passes. We will reconvene here when our executive session concludes. Thank you all for coming, and students, if you have papers to sign, please feel free to bring them up. We're happy to sign for you.
Just a few of you.
That's working.
Come back in open session at 7:47 PM. And thanks everybody for a fruitful discussion and for Dr. Claus and Dr. Blumenkamp for discussing both the classified and district administrative staff salary increases for this year. So the combined package being proposed this evening is 4.01%. We reviewed a detailed breakdown of salary versus health insurance and the total package increase. Everybody said good. I move to approve the 26-27 salary and benefit proposal for supporting staff and administrators as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. Now move to adjourn the meeting at 7:48 PM. Jody, call the roll.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.